Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you hear a little raspiness in my voice, it is because unfortunately the entire family has fallen ill, including 11-day-old baby Carter, which is just so sad. But hopefully we'll all be better soon. My son Carter Gray Thomas was born on January 8th at 9:32 in the morning. He was 19.5 inches long and 7 pounds 12.5 ounces. So he was pretty big considering my size. I'm quite petite, and my midwife had thought that he would only be around 5.5 pounds, so it was quite a shock that he was as big as he ended up being. And before we jump into the labor and delivery story, I want you guys to meet the little guy, so I'm gonna go get him now. This is little Carter Gray Thomas. Today he is 11 days old on the day I'm filming, and he is already over 8 pounds. He's a squishy little guy. I think his cutest feature is his little chin dimple, which matches his dad. And it seems so far that he has my eyes, which you can't really see because he's sleeping. And we just think he's the cutest. Now on to my story. My due date was January 10th, and the week before I had really no symptoms that labor was coming on. I had my 39-week appointment with my midwife, and she checked me. I was not dilated at all. She felt like I was going to go over my due date. I didn't have any Braxton Hicks contractions. I didn't lose my mucus plug. I didn't have a bloody show. My water never broke. Nothing ever happened to indicate to me that labor was coming. I didn't really try and do anything to try to induce labor. The only one thing that I did do is I started eating dates at 38 weeks pregnant. I would have 4 dates a day, and then at 39 weeks pregnant, I started having 6 dates a day, and that's because I had read that eating dates, there's certain enzymes that break down and help your body prepare for labor. So I don't know if that worked or didn't work. That's just something that I did. So on Friday night, which was January 7th at around 11 o'clock, I started feeling very mild cramping, kind of like period cramps, and it lasted maybe about 15-20 seconds. I didn't really think much of it. And then, I don't know, 15-20 minutes later, I felt it again. 15 minutes later, felt it again. Long story short, these period-like cramps started getting more intense and closer together, and what ended up happening was they got stuck at around 10 minutes apart, lasting for 1 minute, and this all lasted the entire night. So every 10 minutes I was getting this cramping, but the cramping was getting progressively more and more painful. And I always had read that when it gets to the point where you can't really breathe through them or walk through them, you know, it's the real deal. So even though they weren't getting closer together, they were getting a lot more painful. And so what I decided to do was, in between contractions, I was looking up different strategies of things to do to manage the pain, and every contraction I had like a different thing I would try, like a different breathing technique, or, you know, counting, or bouncing on a ball. And by a certain point in the morning, like 2-3 in the morning, nothing helped at all. The only thing that I could do to manage the pain of these contractions was just to cry. So to recap here, from 11 p.m. all the way through, by this time it's like 10 or 11 in the morning, so 12 hours I'm having these contractions 10 minutes apart, exactly like clockwork for 1 minute. But in order to go to the hospital, your contractions need to be 5 minutes apart, and that's when they will admit you. Also, you have to be dilated to a certain amount. So I knew I wasn't there yet. I'm like, what is going on? Like, is this ever going to progress? Is it going to stop? I was just really, really frustrated. I was in so much pain. I was in the worst mood. I basically told Ryan to not even talk to me because I was just so frustrated. And then I was doing research, and I found this website called spinningbabies.com. I will link to it below. It said that if your body is having contractions that aren't progressing, it is likely that your body is trying to get your baby in the right position so that real labor can start. So they had different exercises that you could do to get your baby with their head engaged in the right position so that real labor would actually start. So I decided, I'm like, I have nothing to lose at this point. I'm in excruciating pain. Keep in mind, every 10 minutes, I'm like sobbing in pain. So I started doing these exercises. You do them during your contractions to try to move the baby in the right position. And long story short, there's like 5 exercises that they had you do. After I did those 5 exercises, things started happening. Finally, my contractions started getting closer together. So they went from 10 minutes to 7 minutes to 6 minutes to 4 minutes. And then I'm like, crap, did I wait too long? Like, this is happening really fast. And at that point, we raced over to the hospital, and we get there, they put me into the room where they kind of check you out to see if they'll admit you. And at that point, I was 4.5 centimeters dilated. So thankfully, they were able to admit me into a room, and I got all set up in the room, and they gave me some kind of a pain medication. I think it was fentanyl, and instantly that made me feel just a lot more relaxed. I was just in the best mood after that, just to be relieved from the pain of those contractions. I think I was telling everybody in the room that I love them. And this is my one big tip: before you go to the hospital, make sure that you have eaten, especially if you're planning on getting any drugs or an epidural, because once you're all hooked up, they don't let you eat, and I was starving because I had not eaten nearly enough, so that did not help the situation. But they basically had given me that painkiller while I was waiting to get my epidural. I think I was second or third in line. It ended up taking 2.5 hours for the anesthesiologist to come in and give me the epidural. So that's another tip. If you plan on getting the epidural, ask for it soon, because you could be on a list and it could take a while. I have heard mixed things about epidural. Some people saying that they're not painful at all to get, some people saying they're extremely painful. In my case, I can't really tell you either way, because what ended up happening is the exact moment he went to insert the epidural, they put it in your back, I had the most painful contraction, and he had said you can't move at all. If you move even a little bit, it could be very, very bad. So I'm experiencing the worst pain of my life. All you want to do is, scream and cry and freak out at the same time he's putting the epidural in. So that moment was a little traumatizing. I didn't realize that when you had the epidural, it would completely take the pain away. It isn't just kind of numbing the pain. I didn't even know I was having contractions. At this point, it is past midnight. I am over 6 centimeters dilated, and they tell me that I can get some rest and actually go to sleep. So crazy to me to think that I'm in active labor, having contractions, and I get to sleep. So in the morning, they came to check on me, and I was 10.5 centimeters dilated. It was go time, and right at the point where I'm about to start pushing, the nurses and doctors were changing shifts, which I was a little bit upset about because I had grown really attached to the nurses that I was working with. And she came in, I'm like, can you please go get me the best nurse to come in here and replace you? I don't want you to go. And she said, I promise I will get someone really good in here. So she sent me Ursula, who is literally my angel. Ursula, if you are watching this video, I could not have gone through labor without you. So she tells me, okay, the pushing is about to start, kind of talks me through what I'm going to do and the strategy and how it all works and all of that stuff. So I'm like, okay, I could do this. Even though it is the weirdest feeling in the world to have to push when you have no feeling. So they're saying, push in a certain area, but you can't feel that area. So you have to imagine that it's there. And I will say, probably the biggest thing to me that I wasn't expecting was how difficult the pushing part was, how much energy it took. And because I hadn't eaten at this point for well over 24 hours, I think it was like 30 plus hours at this point, I hadn't eaten. So I had no energy to get me through the pushing. And she had told me the pushing would be between 30 minutes to an hour or something like that. I'm like, okay. So again, around 7 in the morning, I start with the pushing, and it took me a little while to figure out what I was doing. And eventually I got the hang of it. She told me I was doing a really good job. And every time I would push during a contraction, she was like, okay, we're making progress. You're so close. You're doing such a good job. So in the beginning, I was feeling like really optimistic. This is going well, just a little bit longer. Because that's what she kept telling me. You're so close. That's what she would say every time. So I'm like, okay, I'm so close. And then it seemed like time was just dragging on for a while, but I didn't have the best concept of time when you're in that situation. So eventually I said, how long has it been? Like, what is going on? And Ryan's like, yeah, it's been about an hour and a half. And I'm like, what? I thought I was so close, like an hour ago. What happened? And then she explained to me that it seemed that the baby was stuck on something, and she didn't know what it was. She didn't quite know what was going on, but something was wrong. I started to get a little bit scared because I'm like, is it a situation I could push through it, or I'm going to need to have an emergency C-section? But she wanted to keep trying to push because the baby was not indicating that he was in distress. So I just kept pushing on. It took literally everything that I had inside of me to keep pushing. I had nothing left to give, and on top of it, I had lost my spirit because I got so discouraged that so much time had passed. So I kept going the best that I could. At this point, 2 hours had passed, 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I just said, I can't do it anymore. I literally cannot push one more time. I'm done. Like this is so hard. I have nothing left to give. And she said, just do one more push, please, just one more. So I said, okay. And then the contraction came, and I pushed, and baby came out, all the way out in one push. And what happened was, and why the whole process took 2.5 hours and he was stuck and all of that, is because little Carter decided to come out of my birth canal with his hand by his face and his arm up. So what had been stuck was his hand, and his arm was stuck in my birth canal. And when he came out all at once, and it was extremely, extremely damaging for me. I wasn't even paying attention. I was just focused on the baby, and they put him on me. I can't even talk about it probably without crying. I just saw him and I just lost it. I burst into tears. It's just so amazing. They try to explain that feeling and you can't explain it until you experience it, but it was even more magical than I could have ever imagined, and I instantly fell in love with him. I think the first thing I said was, he's so cute, because I couldn't believe that this little creature was inside of me. It was the most memorable, special moment of my entire life. I don't think anything will ever top that for me. So I'm in this dream state, so deliriously happy and in love, and I look down and I notice that the doctor is looking a little bit panicked, and I look down on the ground and I see a lot of blood. I don't know how much detail to go in here. I'm just gonna maybe skip over some things, and I'll just say that what happened was, because of the way he came out with his hand and really fast, I had 3rd-degree tearing, which only happens in less than 5% of births. I had over 50 stitches, and I'm going to need to see several different specialists afterwards because of the amount of damage that happened. He was down there trying to sew things up for a very long time, I want to say an hour, so thank goodness for the epidural. There are a couple more details that I'm just not going to go into. I think you get the point. I lost a lot of blood. It was very scary. The recovery since then has been difficult to say the least. Despite how bad things can get and how scary things can get during labor, the moment you meet your baby, none of it matters. So that's the gist of my labor and delivery story. So I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say that things have been easy. Things have been extremely challenging. I feel like I'm in over my head. It's a miracle right now that I'm able to even pull myself together to film this video. I don't know if you can hear him crying. My mom is here watching him, so that's why I'm able to film. I'm hoping to be back on the grid and get the hang of all of this really soon. I do have a video that I pre-recorded that will be up next week, and then I'm going to try to get back on the ball as much as I can as soon as I feel up to it. Also, if you are pregnant and watching this video, I did put together a list of my pregnancy essentials. I spent several hours really thinking about what helped me through my pregnancy, and I made a blog post about it, so I will have that linked down below. Thank you guys always so much for all of your well wishes and support. I've been most active posting daily updates on Twitter. For whatever reason, I just find that the easiest place to update you guys, so come find me there. And with all of that said, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!